Hey, Bobby, thanks for joining us today. It's good to see you.
Ah, glad I could.
Yeah. All right. It is 12 o'clock. Let's give just 1 or 2 more minutes for folks to have a chance to call in. We'll try to get started right at 12:02.
Hey, Kobe, how's it going?
Hey, Mark. I'm doing well. How are you today?
Doing just fine, sir.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to give folks just another minute or two, and then we'll get started.
Sounds good.
Look at the snow. Mittens is wanting in, of course.
All right. It is 2 minutes after 12, so we want to respect everyone's time. We'll go ahead and get started. Do want to give everyone a heads up. We are recording this to share via email after the fact for some folks that have a tough time calling in on Zoom but might want to watch it later. So we'll be sending this out via email to all members of the chamber. Before we get started today, I do want to make a few announcements. I first want to say a congratulations to the winners of this year's Downtown Harlan Christmas Decorating Contest. It's the first time in a few years the Chamber has sponsored awards for decorating, and we were able to do so this year thanks to sponsorship from Harlan Tourism. And so we've given out 4 awards. The first to H&A Counseling for the most lights. The second to Moonbow Tipple for the Christmas Spirit Award. The third to Sassy Trash for the Harlan County Christmas Award. And then the fourth one was to the United Methodist Opportunity Store. They won the Religious Award. And so each winner will get a ribbon to put with their display like this, and then a $100 cash prize thanks to Harlan Tourism. And so if you haven't had the opportunity yet to take a drive through downtown after dark and see all the decorations, it's worth a trip to go and see some of the work that our local business owners have put into sprucing up their storefronts. So we appreciate everyone for participating in that. Some of the most active Facebook posts we've had all year have been people voting for their favorite decorations. Also want to let you know the election for 2021 Harlan County Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors is ongoing. We're having to do that virtually, of course, due to COVID. Members should have an email in their inbox with instructions on voting. The last day you'll be able to vote is by Wednesday, December 30th at 12 p.m. And we will announce new directors later that day via email. I also want to let you know that this Saturday, December 19th, a Village Center Christmas will take place out at the Village Center Mall from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. There will be food trucks, vendors, live music, and a drive-in movie in the mall parking lot afterwards. So if you've got some last minute gifts you've got to get before Christmas, we encourage you to shop locally. Come visit some of our local vendors out at the mall, and some folks will be coming in from out of town to set up. And then last, I want to share with you, the fiscal court announced a local COVID-19 relief funding package this week. And I've asked Judge Mosley if he wouldn't mind giving a little bit of an announcement about that and what it might entail for local businesses.
Thank you, Kobe. It's good to see everyone today, and appreciate what everybody's doing during this tough time we're in. Kobe mentioned the local funding package that the fiscal court approved this week that was presented to them on Tuesday. We've been very aggressive this year in going after funding, not only from just the CARES Act that the federal government allocated to the state and the state allocated for counties and cities. Been very aggressive on that front, but also in other forms of revenue that we've attempted to seek. Plus, projected revenues for fiscal year 2021 outside of that funding are ahead of projections. And we concluded fiscal year 2020 ahead of budgeted projections there. So we were able to present on Tuesday a package that included $400,000 for a variety of agencies in our community. And we're going to be sending funds to the sheriff's department, fire departments, county volunteer fire departments, Black Mountain and Kaywood water districts are getting some funding because they have lost funding as it relates to people who've not been able to pay their water bills associated with the pandemic. It's really hurt cash flows of those water districts. We're also helping the Boys and Girls Club with, they weren't able to have the annual reverse raffle they do every spring. Been able to send some money that way. And, but the local business impact, One Harlan County did a great program through some other funding mechanisms earlier in the year to help businesses acquire PPE and equipment. And that went really well, but they had more applications than they had funding for. So, and a lot of the PPE and sanitizer that people have acquired has been gone through. And even though a vaccine is coming up on the horizon here, we're very thankful for that. It's going to be a long time before everyone has the opportunity to be vaccinated. And we know we're going to be dealing with COVID-19 for several more months. So we've allocated $40,000 in this pot to One Harlan County to do mini grants again to businesses who are in need of acquiring PPE and sanitizer or equipment necessary to protect their customers and their employees from COVID-19. So we're very excited about being able to do that, and thankful to the fiscal court and the magistrates for understanding the need to make these investments. And it's awesome to be able to do that in a month when we have Christmas here and it's the season of giving. And it's great to be able to spread these resources into our community anytime, but especially during a special time of the year for all of us. So thank you, Kobe.
And thank you all. We certainly appreciate the court considering the impact that small businesses make in our local community and for them thinking of that in the relief package. So thank you, Judge. Next, we'll move into our guest speaker. This week, we've got State Representative Adam Bowling with us, and I'm going to read a brief bio that he's provided to us to introduce him. Representative Adam Bowling of Middlesboro is heading into his second term as state representative for the 87th House District. First elected in November of 2018, Bowling was reelected last month to serve Bell and Harlan counties in the Kentucky House of Representatives. A business owner and entrepreneur, he owns multiple small businesses in healthcare, real estate, and agriculture. Bowling is a member of Covenant United Methodist Church, where he serves on the Lay Leadership Committee. He is also involved with a variety of community organizations, including Secretary of the Roho Charitable Trust Incorporated, Director of Cumberland Trails United Way, Cumberland River Behavioral Health, Kentucky Mountain Laurel Festival, and the Middlesboro Sports Hall of Fame. He's a past director of the Bell County Public Library, Bell County Chamber of Commerce, and the Middlesboro Educational Foundation. He is a 2004 alum of Wofford College in Spartanburg, South Carolina, where he graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Economics. In Frankfort, Bowling serves on the Economic Development and Workforce Investment and Health and Family Services Committees, and is Vice Chairman of the Natural Resources and Energy Committee. He also serves as a liaison member of the Budget Review Subcommittee on Human Services. Bowling is a member of multiple caucuses, including the Pro-Life Caucus and the Mountain Caucus. Bowling resides in Middlesboro with his wife, Becky, and their two children, Harrison, age 6, and William, age 2. Adam, I'll turn it over to you at this point. We appreciate you joining with us today to give us a little bit of a legislative update and to talk about some of your priorities as we move into the next legislative session. So feel free to take it away.
Well, very good. Thank you all for having me. Can y'all hear me okay? Sounds good. Okay. First of all, I just want to kind of go off, what Judge Mosley was saying. You guys are really lucky there in Harlan County. Judge Mosley and the fiscal court do a great job of going after any and all monies that are out there. They're very aggressive on that front, and to your benefit without question. I know other counties that are not as aggressive, and they don't get the numerous grants that you see Harlan County being rewarded with, and that's a big credit to those guys. And I know that they will continue to do that. But I hope everyone's doing well. I hope your holiday season, and I hope this pandemic isn't messing with it too much. But I hope everyone has a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Hopefully a very Happy New Year, because 2020 has been it's been one for the ages. But on to the legislative priorities. One thing I do want to share with you all today is a bill that I pre-filed and that I've kind of been working on since late summer, early fall. And it has to do with recovery of substance use and addiction. And I think it's a bill that's really going to help communities and individuals be able to address this problem with the resources that they need to do so. And I'm going to try to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint, and if I could share my screen, I can kind of go through that. And for those just calling in, I know you won't be able to see this, but I'll kind of talk. I'll talk our way through it, and you should get a good understanding. Well, it says if I share it that it will cancel the recording. So I won't do that.
If you need to, Adam, that's fine.
No, I'll just leave it. But so I'm going to use the PowerPoint and I'll talk about it. But it's Recovery Ready Communities, and what it is it's a certification for communities to address substance use disorder locally. Just a background on kind of where this idea came from. I just graduated from Bright Leadership class. It's about between 40 and 50 individuals from ARC counties that come together. They're under the age of 40. And in that class, talking with my fellow participants, one of the major issues that came up was substance use disorder and addiction in their communities, and the havoc it's causing across the board. And a lot of folks had ideas for programs they could start to help, maybe for prevention, from keeping people from going into substance use. There were other people that were champions of active treatment and some programs that they would like to see expanded on that front. And then there were others that were looking more at long-term recovery, both in housing and also getting people that are coming out of addiction, getting them the skills they need to get back in the workforce. Kentucky's work participation rate is very poor. And especially so in Southeast Kentucky, as we've seen, our major employer, the coal industry, kind of go away. So it's something that was highlighted by my peers as something that needs to be addressed. And so we kind of came up with an idea of, well, all those programs are great, and there's already a lot of programs out there. But what we realized is that some communities they might have some programs for prevention. They might have some programs for treatment. They might have some programs for recovery and long-term recovery. And some communities have all three, and that's great. But a lot of communities don't, especially smaller rural communities. And so this Recovery Ready legislation looks to tackle that problem by addressing all three phases. To become recovery ready, You would have to have programs within your community that address prevention, treatment, and then long-term recovery. So that's what we're working towards with it. The legislation itself, we're basically creating the Advisory Council for Recovery Ready Communities. And we were on the phone early and often with Van Ingram in the Office of Drug Control Policy. He agreed very early on to house it in that office. So we're very thankful to Van on that. And basically, this advisory committee, it will consist of representatives from the recovery community, from the business community, from law enforcement, from the courts, from faith-based organizations, from educational organizations. And they're all going to get together and they will set the standards. They will set what communities have to do to go through this process to get the recovery ready certification, as well as they will set the standards for how a community can get this certification. So that the legislation itself basically creates this council, which is going to come up with the guidelines and the standards for communities. Again, the purpose of the legislation is to basically allow communities, give them the framework they need to build recovery ecosystems within their cities, within their counties. Again, we want them to address all three phases to get this certification: prevention, treatment, and recovery. We feel that's vitally important. There's already a lot of good programs out there, and some communities do a better job than others of taking advantage of those. I know Harlan County has been very active on this front. And I would say they probably have programs in all three of those phases already in place. And in counties that have that, we're going to challenge them to do more. Some counties, they may have one or two programs in the prevention category, but they have nothing in treatment and they have nothing for recovery. So we feel it's vitally important for those communities to, if they choose to go through this process, for them to kind of take a self-inventory and say, hey, what do we already have in our community? What are we lacking? What can we add? What would work in our community that would help people and help our communities? So that's kind of what we're aiming for. A major goal of this legislation is we feel there are people that fall into substance use disorder and addiction, and they don't know where to turn for help. Individuals, families, they want treatment. They just don't know what options are out there. And so communities, by communities engaging in this process, they'll take a community inventory. They'll see what they have in place and what they can add. But we want individuals to know that, and for families to know that there are options available in their communities. And to clearly highlight those options. And then also, we just want for cities and for counties and localities and communities, we want there to be a clear established framework of proven programs that work, that they can get in their communities to better address this issue. And we feel too, obviously with the addiction issue, there's tons of social costs, economic costs, whether you're talking about clogging up the court systems, the increased cost to law enforcement, the increased cost to the counties for jailing, workforce participation, people that are young and could be in the workforce and being productive, they're not. They're in a bad cycle, bad time in their life, and we need to all embrace this recovery model so that those that want to get help, there is a clear roadway, a clear pathway for help. And that's the big picture. That's kind of it. I have presented this to my fellow legislators. They're really excited about it. I've got a lot of co-sponsors lined up already, so I'm hoping we'll have 60 or 70 co-sponsors on the House side. I've spoken with Senate leadership on it. They're committed to making sure that we can get this through this year. And we feel it's particularly important this year coming out of this pandemic, where people have been disconnected from the resources that they were using, in recovery. We feel them not being able to go to, say, 12-step programs or go to their churches or whatever it might be, whatever that, what's the word I'm looking for? Whatever that recovery network they had behind them, they've not had the same access to it that they've had. So a lot of people, we've seen overdoses are on the rise, or overdoses are on the rise. Deaths by overdoses at the end of September, they're already greater than all of 2019 combined. So there's definitely been an uptick in this issue in our communities and across the state and across the nation in general. So we would like to get this in by emergency regulation so that it can become law basically in January or February. The advisory council can get to work on it. They can go ahead and form, the advisory council can officially form, and then they can get to work on the standards and the process for communities to get this certification. And we hope to be able to roll this out. I would love to do so by the end of 2021, but the very beginning of 2022 at the latest. And we feel that's very attainable and very doable. We've had a lot of partners in this. Like I mentioned before, we've Volunteers of America. They've been involved in the conversation since July. Same for Operation Unite. Same for Addiction Recovery Care. Kentucky Chamber has been an advocate for this. Kentucky League of Cities, KACO, and then Van Ingram, the Office of Drug Control Policy. They've been very active. When we came up with this idea, we said, well, where do we put it? And we reached out to Van. We said, Van, we think this would be a natural fit for your office. And we know you'll need more resources to really make this program work. And he said, yep. He said, we'll work on that later. He said, this is a good program. He said, I'm doing it. So, and that was in our first conversation with him. So he really stepped up for us. And we feel like we have a good game plan. Before I move on, are there any questions on that legislation? I tried to kind of cover everything, but if anybody has any particular questions, I'm more than happy to answer those and kind of go from there. Well,
Adam, sorry there. This is a great piece of legislation. I saw the story on the news the other night about it, and appreciate you following that. My wife and I have been very involved in this type of stuff for the last 9 years, and it's needed. You talked about the overdose deaths on the rise. They certainly are. We've seen people walk out of treatment centers because they've been afraid they're going to catch the coronavirus, when really, truly, this treatment center was the safest place for them to stay during the pandemic, because of the measures those people have implemented. And these people that are in recovery, that have already graduated from treatment programs, you're exactly right. Their support ecosystem has been completely derailed as a result of this pandemic. And going to Celebrate Recovery in person is much different than people doing it online or over the phone. And it's definitely had a detrimental effect on that effort. And I appreciate you for filing this very important piece of legislation.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate your support on that, Judge. I really do. And it is, at the end of the day, it's about helping people and helping families. That's the big picture. But also, helping our communities. If people get help and people recover, our communities will be better for it. Our schools will be better for it. Our churches will be better for it. Our economic situation will certainly be better for it. And resources, I mean, there are so many resources that are going towards this issue right now on the back end once people get in trouble. That if we can really get these in place and communities want to get proactive on this and really push these programs, I think they can save considerably cost on things like the courts, on things like jails, and put those resources towards economic development or other ventures, other worthy ventures. So we're excited about it, and I'm looking forward to January. Bigger picture, the session there, it's going to be a busy session, as you probably all have heard. Last year, when we were in session, we were finalizing our 2-year budget when the pandemic happened, when it kind of jumped up out of nowhere. And so we had to completely rewrite our budget. And basically what we did is we created a 1-year budget instead of a 2-year budget. Just because we didn't know what revenues were going to look like at the end of the fiscal year. We didn't know how much, we didn't know if the pandemic was going to last for 2 weeks or for 10 months. But obviously we're still in it. And, the good side about that is that Kentucky's revenues have actually held up quite okay during this. The unemployment benefits, the extra $600, that actually helped the state of Kentucky quite considerably, because Kentucky actually is one of the few states that takes withholding taxes out of unemployment benefits. And so when all those federal funds came in to help individuals for the extra $600, well, the state of Kentucky got a piece of that, and that's kind of kept our budget afloat. So heading into this session, it's a 30-day session, a short session. We do have to come up with and finalize another 1-year budget. So that's a very lengthy process that normally we do it in the 60-day budget, just because it takes so much time and you have to get input from so many different individuals and causes out there. But this year we'll have to get it done in the 30-day session. So it'll take up a lot of our bandwidth, so to speak. One of the major issues, one of the things we've heard from constituents across the state is, the governor's emergency powers. And, that's something that the General Assembly is going to address. I don't know how draconian those will be or how lenient they will be, but we feel like that those powers were set up at a time to address emergency situations when, say, there was a flood in Harlan County, and resources needed to be put towards whatever those counties were immediately to help the problem. But that's something that normally went on for a couple weeks or maybe a month. This has gone on for 10 months now, and we'll probably be in it for several more months. And we just feel that, not even with this governor, say it was any governor, we feel that under this situation, if it were to occur again in the future, that the legislature, who is the closest branch of government, a co-equal branch of government, they are the branch of government that is closest to the people, closest to our constituents. We're in daily contact with them, that we need to have a seat at the table for how you're going to proceed for a year worth of government. And that's not happened this time, unfortunately. And so it will be addressed to some degree. Another major issue out there is one of my major concerns is small business. I'm a small business owner myself, but liability protections for businesses. That's one of the major things that large businesses and small businesses are worried about. Is we're the vaccine's here now, so hopefully we're starting to come out of this pandemic. It's the beginning of the end, so to speak. But then our small business is going to be hit with a flurry of lawsuits because somebody claims that they were in your store and so-and-so wasn't wearing a mask, or so-and-so had a cold, but they were still working and it put them at danger. So we kind of want to nip that in the butt, especially for small businesses that have been through a lot this past year. You know, they don't need to see increased costs because of frivolous lawsuits. Now, if they're being dangerous, you know, if they're not requiring people to wear a mask in their stores and things of that nature, that's a different story. You know, that's a different argument. But for some of the frivolous stuff, we do want there to be broader liability protections for that coming out of this. Another major issue for small businesses is the unemployment insurance. The rates will skyrocket coming this year. Just where our unemployment trust fund's been completely depleted. The state government borrowed another $800 and something million to pay for the benefits that that people have been getting throughout this year. So, you know, we did have a trust fund that was built up quite healthily. Now that's down to zero. And so people's, small businesses' unemployment rates are going to skyrocket. Right now, under the current model, going from Schedule B, which I think we're on now, to Schedule E, they're expecting an additional $100 for every employee in every single business. That's what it'll cost. And again, we're at the beginning of the end with this vaccine coming in. Hopefully this spring, businesses can start to open back up. People will feel more comfortable getting out and about, spending money in these businesses, frequenting these businesses, traveling, getting our economy back on board. And we don't want small business to be hit with, a tax increase, a major tax increase at a time when they are just starting to recover from this. So that's something we're going to take a close look at. It's something that we plan to address in this session. Other issues, Supreme Court ruled against historic racing in Kentucky. And so that's something that the legislature will have to take up. That's about $15 million a year that goes to our general fund that, if nothing is done, it'll go away basically. And that's something that the horse industry says that they have to compete, to have the purses, to bring in, all the groups from the outside, from California, all the racehorse industry. It's a signature industry for Kentucky, so it's very important. We don't want to see that go away, but at the same time, I realize that there's a lot of people that don't like that those machines exist. So that's an issue we'll have to address, and it'll be an interesting conversation. There's been a lot of talk this year about criminal justice reform and no-knock warrants. I know President Stivers is working on a bill to not do away with no-knock warrants, but to maybe limit those. There's something that was put in place that they were only supposed to be used in certain instances, and that has grown dramatically on how those are used. So we want to give our law enforcement officers all the resources they need to do their jobs. But if there are things that are being abused under certain rules and statutes, that's something we want to look at. We think that's the smart thing to do and the responsible thing to do. Another push the last several years has been the road tax modernization. And, that's a major issue as more and more vehicles go to all electric cars. That's going to become a bigger issue. Even cars that aren't all electric, they're much more fuel efficient. Our gas tax was adopted at a time when cars were getting, 10, 11, 12 miles to the gallon. Now they're getting, now an SUV, you can get 27 miles to the gallon on the highway. And so that's less and less revenues going into that fund. And then the more and more hybrid and electric vehicles, all electric vehicles that are out there, an all electric vehicle that's on the roads, it's not they're using the roads, but they're not paying for them. I mean, the road fund is truly a user tax. The more you drive, the more gas you buy, the more you're on the roads using them, and the more tax you buy because of that. So that's an issue that the Kentucky Chamber, a lot of city and county government officials, in I guess groups have kind of pushed, and it's something that we'll have to consider. But those are kind of those are the major issues that have been talked about with my colleagues, and all issues I expect us to address in one way or another this session. And again, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer those.
Yeah, feel free to come off mute if you'd like to ask a question, or you can type it in the chat box and we can read it aloud. Adam, one concern I know that everyone in Harlan County continually has, because I get asked about this often, is 421 South. With the hit to the state budget that we've seen, do you think it's still possible that a project like this could be included in this year's budget?
Yeah, I do. I expect that to happen. And it's something that we'll continue to push for. We got $15 million last year. I know that we were with Chris Jones and Kentucky Transportation. I actually just missed a call from Chris while I was on here, so I'll call him back in a minute. But I know it'll take several $1 million more to complete the section that they're looking to complete, which is the most curvy section up towards the Virginia line. And I am confident that we'll get that additional funding. And again, luckily road fund revenues, they've stayed steady so far this year. So that's something that, if there were big losses in those revenues, I might say, hey, we need to pause this conversation. But, I know myself and Representative Fugit, it's something that we have pushed for. I know that you all have new representation there on the Senate side and a fellow Harlan Countyan. So I'm sure it's going to be an issue that he'll be pushing on his side. So, we'll keep pushing ahead, but I'm confident we'll get it done.
Mm-hmm. Good deal. It looks like we got a question in the chat from Eric Hubbard. Eric works with Backroads of Appalachia that have done some motorsport tourism in the area. You've probably heard of the Dragon Slayer.
I talk to Eric frequently. So.
Yeah, well, he's got a question here about talking about 160. I guess there's been some slides on that, and I guess improvements looking to be made there.
Yeah, and they've already done quite a bit of improvements, but the road's all chopped up. I mean, they had to go in and drill and put steel on a lot of places where the slides were. They did that throughout the summer and the fall. I do know that they plan, once all that work is completed, they do plan to go back up and do a complete repaving of it, which will be nice. But in the meantime, we'll have to live with it. But repairs are on the way. And the last time I talked to the head of DOT in Manchester, he expects that road paving to be in the spring or in the summer. So hopefully we can look forward to that.
Good deal.
Yeah. But I know they're seeing a lot of increased tourism, a lot of increased traffic. Eric's group's bringing in a lot of new groups and a lot of new people. So it's important that gets done and that we can show off that beautiful part of the county and our state. I know every time I go up to Black Mountain, I'm still in awe once I'm up there, and it's just beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions? Anyone want to come off mute and ask anything else?
Come on, Bobby. I know you have a question for me.
We have a lot of needs up here. We're looking for all sorts of things. I'm glad to hear about 421. I'm happy about 160. I was across there yesterday. And if we get those two overlooks up there on the side of the road, blacktop during that time, we have plans for that. And then the highest point in Kentucky, these are all these are all assets to the Tri-City area, all of Harlan County. So all of these things are going to help us all. The Dragon Slayer has been great in helping us to get groups in here, and they're promoting us in different ways, and we're promoting them in different ways. So
Mhm.
it's all coming together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adam, for your help too. We appreciate that.
Well, thank you for all you do. I know you're active in everything up that way, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you.
But you're exactly right about the overlooks, and I'll give kudos to Judge Mosley on that one. When we
Right.
met with DOT, the head of Manchester,
Right.
that was one of the main things that Judge Mosley brought up to them, and they committed to doing that, and they agreed it was a good idea that once the work is done and they can pull their vehicles off those
Right.
places, that they could easily blacktop that, and that it'll be great for the area.
Thanks to Dan for helping us in so many ways up here.
Agreed. You all have a great combo of a team going on in Harlan County. Real quick, I'm railroading today. That's why I look like a grease monkey. But I figured today'd be a good time to talk. Of course, for 2021, Harlan County will have 3 major rides going through it, not just on the Tri-City area. We are going to be going through 421 right through the heart of Harlan back over to the Tri-Cities on one we're getting ready to launch. And of course, the Appalachian Autobahn, which if you all might have saw, that's whole direction is to bring, sports cars and car clubs into the area to spend their revenue. And it's taking off solid right now for 2021. We have 31 car clubs already committed to coming up and spending the weekend in Harlan County, which is revenue for you guys. The Benham and Travis Force playing a big part of that, as well as Pine Mountain Settlement School. Is something I'm still working with Preston on, but trying on the weekends to give Preston some revenue coming in for their mission and what they're doing as well. Thank you all.
Thank you, Eric. We appreciate you joining us today, and would love to have you maybe come and speak sometime and talk about the work you're all doing through your nonprofit with Backroads of Appalachia. Well,
Eric's too bashful. I don't know.
Well, for the sake of time, I appreciate everyone calling in and joining us. And Adam, we certainly appreciate your time and sharing some of your priorities. We're really excited about this Recovery Communities initiative you're putting forth, and hope it can be a strong partnership for communities in Southeastern Kentucky to take advantage of something like that to grow ourselves from within. So with all that in mind, I do want to respect everyone's time. It's the lunch hour. I know you've got to get back to work. One last announcement I do want to share is we have a meeting block scheduled for next month. I've been trying to confirm a speaker. No one's confirmed yet. But for right now, we are going to plan to meet virtually again on Wednesday, January 13th at 12 p.m. And so encourage all of y'all to join us again next month. We appreciate you participating with us via Zoom while we're required to do this. Hopefully the light's at the end of the tunnel getting closer to us, and we'll be able to be vaccinated and meeting in person in the new year sometime. So I certainly appreciate you all joining us today, and we thank you again, Adam, for your time.
Yeah, thank you all. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year to all.
All right. Merry Christmas.